Hello and welcome to our presentation on Regulation CC, Funds Availability, an overview of Regulation CC. Welcome to this e-learning module on Regulation CC, the Federal Reserve regulation that governs the availability of fund deposits in banks and credit unions. In this module, we'll explore the key provisions of Regulation CC and understand how it affects consumers and financial institutions. After completing this course, you'll be able to define Regulation CC and its purpose, identify the key requirements of Regulation CC, understand the different types of holds on funds, explain the rules of check processing and availability, and recognize the disclosure requirements under Regulation CC. Now, let's discuss what Regulation CC is. So, what is Regulation CC? Well, Regulation CC is a banking regulation set forth by the Federal Reserve Bank. It implements the Expedited Funds Availability Act of 1987 and the Check Clearing for the 21st Century Act. These laws set specific requirements for timely availability of deposits that are made by customers into transaction accounts. These laws address the lengths of hold times banks previously placed on check deposited by customers. Now let's talk about the key provisions of Regulation CC. Number 1, funds availability. Banks and credit unions must make funds from certain deposits available within specific time frames. Number 2, holds on deposits. Financial institutions can place holds on deposited funds under certain circumstances, such as large or out-of-state checks. Number 3, check processing. Regulation CC provides guidelines for processing and clearing checks. And number 4, disclosure requirements. Financial institutions are required to provide customers with specific disclosures regarding their funds availability policies. Now we're going to discuss the different types of Regulation CC holds. There are two main types of holds that banks can place on deposited funds. The first one is case-by-case holds. These holds are based on specific circumstances such as suspicions of fraud or unusual activity. The other is exceptions holds. These holds apply to certain types of deposits such as large dollar amounts or checks from new accounts. Now let's discuss the check processing and availability. When it comes to local checks, banks must make funds from local checks available within a certain time frame, usually within 1 to 2 business days. When it comes to non-local checks, funds from non-local checks may have longer availability periods, typically up to 5 business days that they can hold it. And then next day availability, banks must provide next day availability for certain deposits such as U.S. Treasury checks and electronic payments. Delaying funds availability. Delaying the funds availability. Banks and credit unions can receive penalties for non-compliance. The penalty can be the actual damage sustained by the customer as a result of the failure. The bank also can be held liable for individual liability no less than $225 or greater than $1,100. The total recovery in any class action suit or series of class action suits shall not be more than lesser of $552,500 or 1% of the net worth of the institution involved. As of February 2010, all checks are now considered local checks. Now, let's discuss the next day availability. Generally, to qualify for the next day availability, the deposit must be both made at a staff teller station and deposited into the account held by the payee of the check. Here are several deposits that need next day availability. We have cash deposits, electronic deposit, U.S. Treasury checks, U.S. postal money orders, other government checks, Federal Reserve Bank or Federal Home Loan Bank checks, cashier, teller, or certified checks, and on-us checks. Note, the lesser of the $225 of the aggregate amount deposit on any banking day to an account of the customer by check or checks are not subject to the next day availability. Second business day availability. The following items must be made available for withdrawal by the second business day following the banking day on which the funds are deposited. So, when the funds are received at a staff facility or ATM, when funds are received by the financial institution via mail, when the funds are removed from a night facility or lockbox, when funds are removed from an ATM not on or within 50 feet of the premises of the financial institution and the funds are not removed more than 2 times a week. The next banking day, if deposited on a non-banking day, or deposited after the cutoff hour for the financial institution. No, funds to be made available on a business day must be available by the later of 9 a.m. local time or when the financial institution's teller facilities are available for account holder withdrawals. When it comes to new accounts, the bank or credit union still can delay the funds. A new account is considered any account open for 30 days or less, unless each account holder has had other account relationships for at least 30 days. Cash and electronic deposits must still be made available by the next business day. The bank or credit union can also place holds on large deposits. A large deposit is considered the aggregate amount of deposits by one or more checks in the excess of $5,525 on any banking day. The bank or credit union can also place holds on redeposited checks, but it does not apply to a check returned due to missing endorsement and redeposited after missing endorsement has been obtained, or check returned because it was post-dated if the check is no longer post-dated. A bank or credit union can also hold your funds due to repeated overdrafts. The bank can use this option when an account has had a negative balance for 6 banking days within the preceding 6 months, or the negative balance in the checking account is 5,525 or more for 2 banking days within the preceding 6 months. An account retains this repeated overdraft status for 6 months from the date of the last overdraft. Please note, cash and electronic deposits must still be made available by the next business day. Reasonable cause to doubt collectability. If a bank employee places a hold and does not give the depositor a hold notice at the time of deposit, the customer may not assess a fee for overdraft if the overdrafts wouldn't have occurred except for the delayed availability of funds, and if the check was paid by the paying financial institution. Please note, banks and credit unions must keep records for 2 years. Banks and credit unions can also delay your funds due to emergency conditions. Holds may be placed on funds until a reasonable time after emergency has passed. Here's a list of a couple. 1. Interruption of communications of computer or other equipment. Suspicion of payment by another financial institution. War and emergencies beyond the control of the institution. An exception hold notice must include reason the exception was invoked, date of the deposit, amount that is delayed, number that identified the account holder's account, reason the exception was invoked, day the funds will be available for withdrawal, except when unknown, aka emergency conditions, and as for timing, the bank or financial institution must keep evidence of compliance for 2 years. Banks and credit unions must give you a funds availability disclosures or written notices due to the case-by-case delay. The written notice will contain the number code identifying the account holder's account, date of the deposit, amount that is delayed, and the day the funds will be available. It must be given at the time of deposit unless the deposit was not made in person or the financial institution decides after the fact to place the hold. Disclosure requirements. Financial institutions must provide members with clear and understandable disclosures regarding their funds availability policies. These disclosures should include information about holds, availability timeframes, and any fees associated with the account. I just want to say congratulations. You have just completed this e-learning module on Regulation CC. We have covered the key provisions of Regulation CC, including the funds availability, holds on deposits, check processing, and disclosure requirements. Remember to always consult your manager for specific details regarding our policies and procedures under Regulation CC. Thank you for completing this e-learning module. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to your trainer or your manager.